You, gentleman from Pennsylvania, is recognized for questions.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Just in the fact that we're running out of time, we can go ahead and yield back. But thank you.
Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. One of the grounds on which our colleagues from the other side of the dais have decided to impeach Mr. Mayorkas is they say he didn't come testify to Congress. And I think you've been following this pretty closely. And in fact, he has testified to Congress multiple times, but they're particularly peeved that he didn't appear before a particular committee on a date when he was already scheduled to be talking to Mexican authorities about how we could better address the crisis at the border. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Certainly. Secretary Mayorkas has testified 27 times to Congress during his 3 years as the Secretary of Homeland Security. That's more than any other cabinet secretary. The Republican majority says that he was asked 4 times to come and testify. 3 of those times preceded the passage of the impeachment resolution and preceded the initiation of an impeachment inquiry into him. After those 3 times, he did come and testify to the committee, where he was asked numerous questions about these same issues. Then he was asked 1 time to come, as the gentlelady said, on a date certain, because this investigation had to be finished within the span of 3 or 4 weeks. So it was only 1 date when, as you correctly say, he was meeting with Mexican authorities, ironically, to figure out how to address the situation at the border. And he could not change his schedule.
And in fact, as a result of that meeting, didn't he reach an agreement with the Mexican authorities, pursuant to which we saw a 75% drop in border crossings at the end of this last year?
He has been working, I think, quite significantly with the Mexican authorities. Also, another major issue which we have not addressed is the hundreds of thousands of American-made guns that have gone from the United States to the drug cartels. I find it interesting when my colleagues say that the immigration, that the open border, quote unquote, that was phase 2, open border fuels the drug cartels. Well, I think the drug cartels would say that the gun trafficking from the United States to the drug cartels actually is what fuels their authority and their control over the border. But the Secretary has implemented a specific operation to address the outflow of American-made guns. There are no guns that are made in Mexico effectively. They're all come from the United States, or at least I should say at least 70% come from the United States. So, yes, he's been working very hard with the Mexican authorities to address these issues.
And you had some engagement in impeachments under the last administration. Were there efforts made to accommodate witness schedules from the Trump administration?
Yes, repeatedly. The problem we ran into is many of the witnesses from the Trump administration just refused to abide by or obey their subpoena altogether. And I, once again, find it incredibly ironic that the chairman points out that there are 40 requests out of hundreds that the Department of Homeland Security has not responded to. The department has given tens and thousands of documents, has had hundreds of hours of meetings and briefings, has provided far more information and insight than or in the ordinary course. And that, of course, is compared to former President Trump in the first impeachment. After declaring he would defy all subpoenas, he then turned over 0 documents from his administration.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady from Indiana is recognized for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have any questions. I yield back.
Thank you. Gentlelady from New Mexico is recognized for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, representatives, for bringing the amendment and shining a light again on the hypocrisy that we are seeing, where the effort to address the border is dead on arrival. And the Senate, even if I don't agree with the bill, the idea that we are not going to address that every attempt of actually solving this problem is rejected, and that instead we're spending all this time, as you pointed out, hundreds of hours, and for nothing. There's nothing there. There's no crime. There's no intent, and there is a man who is trying to carry out his job, and so I have no questions, but I thank you for bringing the amendment, and with that, I yield back.
And point out to my friend, we've had a bill sitting over there for 7 months that hasn't been picked up and considered. So we know something about waiting. With that, I want to thank the witness for appearing, and you're excused. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record a statement from Representative Jackson Lee on her amendment number 8 on HRES 863?
Without objection. Is there anyone else seeking to testify on H.R. 485 or House Resolution 863? Seeing none, this closes the hearing portion. The chair will be in receipt of a motion from the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee grant HRES 863, impeaching Alejandro Nicholas Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security, for high crimes and misdemeanors, a closed rule. The rule provides that upon the adoption of the resolution, it shall be in order without intervention of any point of order to consider HRES 863. The rule provides that the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Homeland Security, now printed in the resolution, shall be considered as adopted. The rule provides 2 hours of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee of Homeland Security or their respective designees. The rule provides that upon adoption of HRES 863, HRES 995 is hereby adopted, and further, that no other resolution incidental to impeachment relating to HRES 863 shall be privileged during the remainder of the 118th Congress. The rule further provides for consideration of H.R. 485, the Protecting Health Care for All Patients Act of 2023 under a structured rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce or their respective designees. The rule provides that the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Energy and Commerce, now printed in the bill, modified by the amendment printed in Part A of the Rules Committee report, shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions of the bill as amended. The rule makes in order only those amendments printed in Part B of the Rules Committee. Each amendment shall be considered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by a proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, shall not be subject to a demand of the division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against the amendments printed in Part B of the Rules Committee report. Finally, the rule provides one motion to recommit. As there was a lot of chatter while I was reading that, do you want me to read that again?
You know, I was able to hear every word with clarity. So, I see no objection or disagreement. So, a rare moment of unanimity on the Rules Committee. I want to thank you very much. You've now heard the motions or any discussion or amendments to the rule.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the rule.
Gentleman's recognized.
I move the committee make an order amendment number 7 to HRES 863, offered by Representative Menendez, which provides details on the nature of the sources and witnesses used by the Homeland Security Committee Republicans in their investigations. Let me just take a minute here to explain this amendment. This germane substitute amendment was blocked. It was blocked from even being considered in the Homeland Security Committee. Republicans abruptly ended the markup rather than vote on it. Why? Because it exposes their sources and witnesses for what they are. Many of them are actual members of designated hate groups or have espoused disgusting, racist rhetoric. Reports released by Homeland Security Committee Republicans surrounding this so-called investigation cited the work and testimony from designated hate groups 57 times. 57 times. Republicans don't want the American people to know that they are relying on testimony from witnesses with ties to hate groups on this sham impeachment. I urge a yes vote on my motion, and I yield back my time.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
I thank the chairman, and I certainly support the amendment. And I had a question, I suppose, for the chairman. Subparagraph 5 of this resolution, or the rule rather, says, quote, provides that upon adoption of HRES 863, HRES 995 is hereby adopted, end quote. So essentially deeming HRES 995 as adopted. My understanding is that's the resolution that appoints the impeachment managers. We haven't seen that resolution. I don't know if we can get a copy of it, if that can be provided to the committee before we vote, so we know what we're voting on.
A copy will be provided to the gentleman this evening.
Could we do that before we vote, or?
Do it as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Thank you.
We'll wait.
Well, you could probably vote on my amendment because it has nothing to do
If
with,
that's all right, then we'll reserve voting on
The
this
final
amendment.
passage.
If you have other, you can bring the amendment back up to discuss.
No, I have no amendment. I'm fine with proceeding with voting on this amendment.
Yeah,
I just,
before we vote on
before we
final
vote on the final rule,
Well,
it'd be good to
you'll
have
see
that.
it before we vote on final passage.
Great.
If we have to
Okay,
delay
all
at
right.
that point, we will.
so this is on the issue about the people who testified before Homeland Security and
Gentleman's
who
recognized.
are associated with hate groups and who have been accused of sexual abuse and a whole bunch of other stuff. And again, they were not. This amendment was blocked from being considered by House Republicans on Homeland Security. So I would urge a yes vote on my amendment.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the amendment?
So, Mr. Chairman, yes, and Ranking Member, I think part of the concern is really trying to understand where the impetus and animus with regards to this comes from. And I take it that some of this refers to the fact that there may be ties with white nationalists and other sort of positions that Americans should know where people are coming from and what they believe in and why they are stating what they're doing, so that as we look at this, we have a good understanding of the impetus behind this impeachment. Is that, and that's what we're trying to get at. Is that right, Ranking Member?
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the questions on the amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
I ask for a roll call.
Roll call's been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
Burgess votes no.
Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Reschenthaler.
Yeah.
Mr. Reschenthaler, no. Ms. Fischbach. Ms. Fischbach, no. Mr. Massey. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy, no. Ms. Houchin. Ms. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. McGovern.
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leger-Fernandez. Ms. Leger-Fernandez, aye. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 7 nays.
Noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Is there additional amendments?
Yes, Mr.
Gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Yes. I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make in order amendments 2, 3, 4, and 6 to HRES 863, offered by Representative Ivey, which inserts statements from constitutional scholars and former Homeland Security officials stating that the majority has not established a constitutional basis to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. Mr. Chairman, we've heard a lot of quotes tonight from government officials and nonpartisan constitutional scholars called by Democrats and Republicans alike, that what has been presented in this impeachment resolution does not come anywhere close to qualifying as an impeachable offense. And I think, that tone was set at the outset when the witness called by the Republican Party said he didn't see any impeachable offenses, Mr. Turley. Impeachment is a serious and sober undertaking, yet the sham articles presented today allege no high crimes or misdemeanors, and it cheapens our Constitution and that power. This is a political stunt with no basis. In fact, the argument for impeachment is the exact thing that the framers did not think impeachment should be used for, and that's policy disagreements. So I urge a yes vote on my motion, and I yield back.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the questions on the amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
Burgess votes no.
Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Reschenthaler.
No.
Mr. Reschenthaler, no. Ms. Fishbach. No. Ms. Fishbach, no. Mr. Massey.
No.
Mr. Massey, no. Mr. Norman. No. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy. No. Mr. Roy, no. Ms. Houchin. No. Ms. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. McGovern.
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse.
Aye.
Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leger-Fernandez.
Aye.
Ms. Leger-Fernandez, aye. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
A clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. There are additional amendments.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady from New Mexico is recognized.
Thank you. I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 1 to House Resolution 863 offered by Ranking Member Thompson, which inserts statements concerning the lack of due process afforded Secretary Mayorkas during the conduct of the Homeland Security Committee's impeachment proceedings. Mr. Chairman, this sham impeachment didn't even pretend to offer Secretary Mayorkas due process rights that were afforded in every other impeachment, absent a literal insurrection attempt, which we lived through and Americans saw live on TV. The committee did not permit Secretary Mayorkas to present witnesses or cross-examine witnesses, which was provided in the only ever example of the impeachment of a cabinet secretary. There was no role for the Secretary's counsel to represent him before the committee. Secretary Mayorkas agreed to testify before the Homeland Security Committee in a January 2024 letter to Chairman Green. As we heard a bit earlier, the one day they gave Secretary Mayorkas to testify was the day he was meeting with Mexican officials, and which led to a drop in crossings immediately thereafter. They never offered another alternative. Americans know and value the importance of due process. They know and value the ability of somebody who is accused to be able to stand and confront his accusers. This was not afforded Secretary Mayorkas. The whole thing is a joke and is not being conducted with the seriousness that impeachment, a constitutional offense, deserves. I urge a yes vote on my motion, and I yield back.
Is there any further discussion of the amendment? Hearing none, the questions on the amendment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
Burgess votes no.
Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Reschenthaler.
No.
Mr. Reschenthaler, no. Ms. Fishbach.
No.
Ms. Fishbach, no. Mr. Massey. No. Mr. Massey, no. Mr. Norman.
No.
Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy.
No.
Mr. Roy, no. Ms. Houchin.
No.
Ms. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. McGovern.
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse. Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Leger-Fernandez.
Aye.
Ms. Leger-Fernandez, aye. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk will report the total.
4 yeas, 8 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. Are there any further amendments?
Mr. Chairman, let me thank you for sharing with us the list of managers. It's a doozy, but thank you.
You are welcome. The gentleman's recognized.
I know we've had fulsome debate, and so I'm not going to belabor the point here. I do think, to the point that the ranking member articulated, getting this last list of the managers that apparently House Republicans are going to send over to the United States Senate to present these articles, it is consistent with the entire way in which House Republicans have ran this sham of a process. And to appoint managers, the vast majority of whom don't serve on the Judiciary Committee, have never served on the Judiciary Committee, notwithstanding the centuries of precedent, going back to the impeachment trial of Andrew Johnson in the mid-18th century, appointing a number of individuals who aren't attorneys, who haven't prosecuted any kind of case, who have no experience that would be requisite to actually perform what is supposed to be a solemn task. And I recognize that members feel differently about it, and so that's fine. I mean, you'll vote the way you want to vote, and you'll set a new precedent now that apparently impeachment is to be debased, that we should just, on a regular basis, impeach cabinet officials and send over random groups of House Republican or House Democratic members who have an objection to a particular cabinet secretary, and that's the new way that the House of Representatives does business. It's I think, a sad day for the institution. I yield back.
Hearing no further requests or no requests for further amendments, the questions on the motion to report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
The opinion of the chair, the ayes have
Ask
it.
for a roll call vote.
Roll call's been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
Burgess votes aye.
Mr. Burgess, aye. Mr. Reschenthaler. Mr. Reschenthaler, aye. Ms. Fischbach. Ms. Fischbach, aye. Mr. Massey.
Aye.
Mr. Massey, aye. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, aye. Mr. Roy.
Aye.
Mr. Roy, aye. Ms. Houchin. Ms. Houchin, aye. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. McGovern.
No.
Mr. McGovern, no. Ms. Scanlon.
No.
Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Neguse.
No.
Mr. Neguse, no. Ms. Leger Fernandez.
No.
Ms. Leger Fernandez, no. Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, aye.
Clerk will report the total.
8 yeas, 4 nays.
And the ayes have it. The motion report's agreed to. Accordingly, Dr. Burgess will be managing this rule for the majority,
And me for the minority.
and the ranking member for the minority. With that, the hearing
Are
is...
these both coming up back to back, tomorrow, these rules?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.